before we start the session one, I'll give a brief introduction to Professor Sastry, who's sitting here on the table on the extreme right. He is the chairman, founder member, and trustee of ADR. As you are all aware, ADR was started in 1999 by 11 professors of IIM Ahmedabad. So at that time, Professor Sastry and the others, and Dr. Ajit Ranade also, they were all there. So Professor Sastry is a BTech from IIT Delhi, an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, PhD in Operation Research from MIT USA, and his area of interest have been operational research, supply chain management, rural development, democracy, and governance. He was formerly the dean at the IIM Bangalore, and he retired last year. That is the mandatory age 65 from IIM Bangalore. And he is also wearing a different hat. That is, he is the founder and secretary of the Center for Collective Development, CCD, and the founder of Farm Veda. He has been awarded several accolades, such as Satyendra Dubey Memorial Award from IIT Kanpur in 2013 for his contributions to bring about transparency in public life. The Distinguished Alumnus Award from IIT Delhi in 2012, Outstanding Contribution to National Development Award from IIT Delhi Alumni Association in 2005, Best Young Teacher in 1999 by the Association of Management Schools and others. He has also written two books. One is Essentials of Hinduism, and another one which is a sequel to that, in which he discusses the world religions, and they have been published I think last year or year before that by Penguin. So with that, I welcome all the panelists, and I hand over the session now to Professor Sastry to kindly take on the proceedings. Just a couple of ground rules. As we had mentioned, about 12 to 15 minutes per panelist. And at the end of the session, there will be a question-answer session. And I also want to highlight that Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, whom you see on the screen, he's joining online, though he was to fly to Chennai, but he's been kind enough to join online. So we will be taking questions online also from some of the spectators as well as the audience here. With that, thank you, and over to Professor Sastry.
Thank you, Major General Verma, for that kind introduction. Is this mic on?
Yeah.
Huh? Yes. It's on? You can hear me? Okay. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for taking the trouble to come. And we have two speakers and one online. At the outset, we'd like to mention that ADR has invited all the political parties to come, and those who have agreed to come are present with us. I will introduce them shortly. And those who are unable to come, we will miss them. So we are not trying to say that we will invite so-and-so and not invite so-and-so. We believe that all political parties have an important role to play in Indian democracy. And before I introduce the speakers, I just want to mention a few facts. I think the speakers know about it, but many of the people in the audience and those who are joining us online, one of the issues, or maybe the key issue why we started ADR, was what is now being called the criminalization of politics. What does that mean? It means that people who have got charges framed against them in a court of law, and if they were convicted, they would be sent to jail. Such people are not only getting tickets, but also winning elections. Now, what do our data show? So, one of the things that ADR is criticized for is that in spite of our efforts, the criminalization has actually increased. Welcome.
I apologize for being
No, we were so happy you had come.
Such an esteemed panel, and I am late.
Ms. Priyanka Kakkar.
Yes, please.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. So let me just finish. I was just introducing the subject, and then we all get 12 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then, if you are willing, there will be some Q&A.
I'll be more than happy.
Yeah. And थोड़ा बहुत हिंदी भी चलेगा शायद. I don't know. I have no idea what the. I mean, people have their own preferences for languages. So one of the criticisms of ADR is that yes, you started off by trying to work on the criminalization of politics, but what is the state of affairs? So we've been tracking this data from 2004, and in your folders, you will find this piece of paper. You can actually open it and see it, just one pager called Election Watch. And I will not take too much time, but just tell you one thing, that the figure at the bottom, it shows that the percentage of people who won in the Lok Sabha, not very far from here, now we have a new Lok Sabha, was about 24% in 2004. It became 30% in 2009. It became 34% in 2014. Then the great leap forward, it became from 33 to 43% in 2019. And today we have reached an all-time record of 46% of sitting MPs who have got criminal cases. And we have a sub-classification of people with serious criminal cases, which means that if they were convicted, they would go to jail for at least 5 years. And that number has gone up from 11% in 2014 to 31% today. So, we are facing a global challenge. Some countries are bombing each other. Oil prices have crossed $100, and everybody is watching what is going to happen to our country, because we may not be involved in the war, and I'm happy we are not, but all this is going to affect us. Now, when we have people in parliament with 46% having criminal cases, 31 serious criminal cases, and our report also shows that many of them are in the Union Cabinet of India, central government. And similarly, if you look at the MLAs around the country, there are about 4,000 MLAs in the country. We have similar data that about 40 to 45% of MLAs, elected MLAs in the country, have criminal cases. Are we going to be able to face the challenges of international governance, now this war which is going on, the economic fallout of that, with this kind of a parliament or not? I have no idea. We would be waiting to hear from our panelists. And I would just flag one more issue. See, it is not merely about criminalization alone. It's all about what kind of a country do we want to build. And an important aspect of that country is what kind of a government we want, what kind of values do we stand for. And we believe that in a country like India, all of us, maybe a small group here today, we have a vital role to play in participating, engaging, and raising important issues. So it is not merely about criminalization. There are related issues of governance, etc. So let me just stop here, and I will introduce the speakers and flag some questions for their advice, because we want to take these suggestions forward. Just one more point I'll mention, just to give the background, sir. The Joint Parliamentary Committee has invited ADR several times in the past, and right now we have an invitation to present our views, which includes all of us here, on the proposed bill for curbing criminalization of politics. And it is a 130th constitutional amendment bill, and what it says is that anybody who is in jail for more than 30 days will automatically be disqualified from holding any minister's position, chief minister's position, or the prime minister's position. And we are going to make our submission to the JPC. We have given a written submission, but we are going to make an in-person submission. The point is that these kind of meetings are important, and the views of the eminent panelists and all of you are also important. And just to help you think through this, I'll just flag one issue. There's a difference between somebody being arrested even without charges being framed and being put in jail for 30 days. Some of the politicians from her party, the lady sitting on the left, by this law, they would have been disqualified. Whereas there are people who have got criminal cases framed against them in a court of law. They are sitting in the central government, they are sitting in the state governments of all parties, but they are not being arrested. So is arrest the only way of curbing criminalization, or is a procedure which the court has followed should be followed? So these are all questions that we will debate. So I would, all of you are eminent people, so I will flag that this is a very opportune time that we are discussing this issue. So very quickly, sir, on my immediate left is a very, very important and eminent panelist, Mr. Prakash Rawat. Thank you, sir, for taking the trouble to come all the way from Bhopal. I will not introduce him at great length because it will take too much time. He was former Chief Election Commissioner of India, and we fondly remember working with him when he was the CEC as well. And he has many credits to his work, and he's deeply committed to not only elections and democracy, and of course a former Chief Election Commissioner of India. I just learned that he is also very keenly involved in development work even in the rural areas, starting in Madhya Pradesh, but several other states. Thank you, sir, for joining us. To his left is Mr. Anish Gawande. He's the national spokesperson of NCP from the SP party. Yes, yeah. And at least personally, I was very happy to see him because he's a very young man. He's the youngest man on this panel. And you hear that something very significant happened in Nepal. You must be aware of it. So who knows, maybe we have a future leader of the country sitting right here. Because
putting me in jail, sir. You call me Gen Z protester.
नहीं, वहाँ पे तो नहीं जेल में कोई गया. What I'm saying is that I have been wondering for many years, 10 years at least, that people with this color of hair, and that includes me, we should be getting out, and some of the younger people should be taking charge. So thank you very much, Anish, for coming, and we wish you very well in your future. And then on the extreme left is Priyanka Kakkar. She is the National Chief Spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, a party that was new, the newest kid on the block which made a national impact. Before that was the BSP. And some of us, when we started ADR, we had the privilege of working with the founder of Aam Aadmi Party, who used to be a friend of ours when he was not a politician. And they started off with a lot of idealism. And so we are very happy that Priyanka ji is with us. Thank you for coming. And we have one more person joining us online, Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, who is the national spokesperson for the Samajwadi Party. He is joining us online. Thank you, sir. Tiwari साहब, नमस्ते और आपको भी आमंत्रण है. Thank you for coming. So, with that introduction, we will, I suppose one of you will maintain time, or I don't know, someone is going to maintain time. No, while we are eager to listen to your this thing, we just want everybody to get a chance and also leave some time for audience Q&A. So, there are a lot of questions, but I will start with a simple question, sir. Is this issue of criminalization of politics a serious issue? And if so, what can we do about it? Over to you, sir. We'll start with you.
Thank you, Professor Sastry. Very good morning to you all. My fellow panelists, Anish, Priyanka, and Mr. Ghanshyam online. The issue is important, yes, but all issues must be seen in a context. Globally, if you see, we are much better off than many democracies across the world. Our elections are gold standard still, and systems are perfect. So there is not much to think that there is going to be a catastrophe. We are still doing very well. However, we must not lose focus of emerging threats to our polity, our elections, our systems. But that also requires a context that if the judicial system is not able to deliver a final verdict in a decade or 2 decades, then the burden of penalty getting passed on to somebody else will be a travesty. And therefore, I feel that while we keep our focus on the issue of criminalization of politics, we must never lose sight of context, etc. To put everything in a broader perspective, earlier the political conflict used to be resolved through battles and wars, killing millions. Elections have replaced that by a very peaceful system of change of power, bloodlessly, without any killing. So, globally also, we have done wonderfully well that battles and wars have been replaced by something which is so good. Some problems keep arising, and I think generations after generations, we are becoming more resourceful. In fact, the youngsters are the most resourceful of the lot, and we must have full faith in them that they will be able to resolve all these emerging threats to our systems instead of going for shortcuts. The shortcuts, as Professor Sastry also pointed out, that 130th Amendment, and case in example is already there before you, that not only charges were framed, but a senior public functionary was put behind bars for many months. And the case was scrutinized twice by the High Court and once by the Supreme Court. And they all said, the charges are very serious. You cannot be given the bail. And the final verdict of the lower court was that material is not enough even to frame charges. They are discharged honorably. Imagine. So these shortcuts should always be avoided so long as we are not able to create that kind of faith in the systems. I was just reading one empirical research and I found that in our country, all those cases, criminal cases, which are tried after framing of charges, the rates of conviction are very poor. How can you rely on such a system which doesn't throw 90%, 95% rate of convictions? Because then, yes, of course, you can realize that framing of charges is very important, and at that stage we should disqualify. In fact, so much so that in one case I found that district level judiciary's rate of conviction after framing of charge was 8%. So 92% people just after framing of charges can be disqualified for no fault of theirs, for being innocent. So all these factors have to be kept in mind before jumping on something making the remedy worse than the illness. Finally, I'll just like to say that one of the empirical research says that why political parties select or give tickets to those people who have criminal antecedents. That said, so many things. One is, such candidates can finance their own campaign. Such candidates bring benefits to the party in the form of organized crime networks. some intra-party considerations like to ensure compliance of powerful factions, especially within the party, to undercut factions in the party that are becoming too powerful so that they do not threaten the leadership and its loyalists. The criminal type candidates have the highest average winning probability as well as higher vote share, and parties have lowest cost, highest benefit from running a criminal type. And parties also take precaution that even if you are criminal type candidate, if you are very popular with the masses, they won't give you ticket because they don't want you to grow more powerful than the ruling leadership. So they will undercut such candidates who are, though having criminal type, are very popular, very powerful with the masses. So there is a check on that also. So these are the political processes, and once Honorable Supreme Court also ruled that no other constitutional authority or other authority should go into the political process. That should be left to the politicians. With that, I think I'll close. That subject is important. We must not lose sight of it. We must ensure that solutions are devised to ensure that rising numbers of candidates with criminal antecedents is kept under check, and on the other side, we should try and improve our systems by inducting brilliant young minds, especially from NLIU institutions, which have now proliferated throughout the country, and churning out a huge mass of young, legally brilliant and educated brains in investigation, in prosecution, and in adjudication. And the case in example is NIA, National Investigation Agency. When it was set up, conviction rate for NIA cases is more than 90%. That is where we want to have our institutions before we jump on any conclusion and bring a remedy which is worse than the illness. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have given us a lot of food for thought. We will carefully consider your suggestions. So over to the youngest person on the panel. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sastry, and thank you very much, Mr. Rawat and Major General Saab, and everyone for inviting me here. It's indeed an honor to be on a panel as illustrious as this, and as part of a panel with ADR, which has been an organization that many young people who have joined politics have looked up to for so long, because it's spoken to the concerns of a lot of young people, right? And I think we've got an overview of what the criminalization of politics over the last few decades has meant, both in numerical terms. We've got a general overview of the various steps that have been taken against this criminalization of politics. But I think it's important to put this in a bit of a historical context, right? And I'm going to take some examples from the city I come from, Mumbai, to highlight how this criminalization of politics has always been a contentious issue. Now, of course, Mumbai is a trade union city, was a trade union city. Back in the days when the Congress party was in power at the center, we had the CPI and the CPM, the communist parties, being incredibly influential in the city. And you had some of the stalwarts of the city, political stalwarts, emerge from trade union and labor movements, right? There are records of the Commissioner of Police of Mumbai at the time talking about how Mrinal Gore and Comrade Dange and Ahilya Rangnekar were all gherawing politicians, who were gherawing bureaucrats and demanding workers' rights. Lots of cases were filed against these leaders back then. A lot of persecution ensued. In many ways, if they had been contesting elections today, they would be classified as some of the most heinous criminals in politics. Perhaps the example that took that logic forward most directly was George Fernandez, who contested the Mumbai South election and was involved in the Baroda dynamite case, for which he was arrested in Calcutta in the 1970s and managed to both contest and win that election from Calcutta against Mrs. Gandhi in the sort of elections after the emergency, proving that in many ways this criminalization of politics has been and continues to remain politically motivated, which is why the solutions that we sort of develop for a criminalization of politics need to be incredibly carefully considered. Now, this has continued. In 2019, I was part of an election campaign in Mumbai. We have some others here as well who were part of that campaign, and we had Arvind Savantji, who was contesting from Mumbai South, who had one criminal case with 5 criminal charges against him that became a very big issue for that election. And we said, we don't want criminals in politics, we want a clean person in politics. The charges were for the breaking of pots at Dadar police station. And so this whole sort of perspective that has been generated, that we don't want criminals in politics, has an emotive heft that can be channelized during an election without the facts in question ever coming into play. You know, unfortunately, most of our voters don't yet go to the ADR website and see exactly what those charges were. Most of us don't see the affidavits of our politicians and see exactly why have these charges been framed against them and what cases are currently pending against politicians. And therefore, this blanket criminalization needs to be countered with an understanding and a greater legal awareness amongst voters as well as to what charges against people have been and what sort of motivates those charges to make them more powerful in the long run. Now, I am proud to say that I also have an FIR filed against me in this very city for protesting for stray dogs. I never thought कि कुत्तों के लिए आवाज़ उठाने के लिए FIR लग जाएंगे, but here we are in this city at this moment of time where the Delhi police is trigger happy in the filing of charges where there is no merit in those charges being filed. And these cases then take their time to go through the courts. Right? And I think if your data is anything to go by, it might improve my winnability and also improve my chance of getting a ticket. So I'm hoping this case goes on for as long as possible. But the nature of who gets to file an FIR, the nature of which FIRs actually get filed, the nature of the charges filed against somebody in that FIR have continuously remained, unfortunately, politically motivated. I think I brought out the examples of Mumbai to ensure that we don't turn partisan political into this, because of course we can spend our 9 p.m. primetime debates criticizing this government, but in some ways many governments in the past too have had this very problem. Now the question then arises, and a lot of the solutions that we've discussed over the course of many committees is what is the solution to such a problem? And one of the solutions that has been presented is the fast-track court for politicians in particular to address this question. I think, as Mr. Rawat said, I don't think, unfortunately, unless we have a comprehensive review of the judiciary and lower courts that function the way they are meant to, we can have a real solution, because fast-track courts for politicians are not going to fix the problem, and they're fundamentally unjust given the sort of delays that exist for under-trials at every single level. So why should politicians have a special place in society? And if politicians have a special place in society, should all those who are not getting justice become politicians to ensure that they get fast-track cases? Should Umar Khalid tomorrow become a politician so that he can finally get a trial in the hallowed sort of courts of our country? Right? And I think this is, again, precisely where the 130th Constitutional Amendment, which we of course discussed a little bit, falls flat on its face. Because in the face of criminalization of dissent, a criminalization of politics that is punished does not have any value, because it then is directly just a punishment of dissent. Of course, with the 130th Constitutional Amendment, you raised very valid points about the fact that this is something that is done at a pre-trial stage. It includes both detention and arrest, which are illogical grounds to sort of disqualify somebody under. It does not include a framing of charges stage. It has been used most recently, of course, against Arvind Kejriwalji and Manish Sisodia-ji, who spent more than a year, and in Manish Sisodia-ji's case, almost 3 years in jail, more than 500 days in jail, on charges that were dismissed by a lower court. We saw this in Maharashtra. We saw this with a sitting Home Minister, Anil Deshmukhji, being sort of sent to jail and having to resign from his position. We saw this with Nawab Malik, who was again a minister in that cabinet, who had been sent to jail. And we see this time and again, that with the proliferation of investigating agencies, income tax, CBI, ED, the new ICE of India, the means through which a criminalization is made possible are only increasing. Now, of course, this has a structural problem. When you say that only ministers and chief ministers should be sent to sort of, or should be disqualified for being criminals or being arrested, you're essentially moving away from a parliamentary system into a presidential system. The chief ministers are first among equals, and ministers are above and beyond members of the house that they belong to. And so the logics that should apply to a chief minister, the logics that should apply to a minister, should apply to every single MLA, should apply to every single member of the house. And so these logical inconsistencies also in the framing of the law make many of us in the opposition question the intent behind these laws. I want to sort of end by saying that in some ways, we've turned our debate into criminalization of politics into a debate that resembles our desire to have educated people in politics. As somebody who gets many compliments for being very well educated and in politics, I take every opportunity I can to reject that characterization, right? To say that in fact, it is sometimes those who do not come with formal degrees, it is sometimes those who are not well educated, who are the ones who can bring about tangible change and who are actually far better policy makers than those of us who have policy degrees that are quite frankly useless to begin with, right? And it is often those with the highest levels of education who will garland mob lynchers, right? And have degrees from fancy universities abroad and come back here and participate in the most egregious forms of assault on our democracy that perhaps somebody who came from the grassroots would not ever participate in. Now, the rule of preventing criminalization in politics, for me today, unfortunately, stands as a way of stifling dissent amongst young people. Time and again, we've seen in protests that have taken place across the country right now, charges being filed against young people who are students at JNU, at TIS, at other universities across the country, charges that take years to go through the courtroom, and charges that then become impediments to them pursuing educations, to them traveling abroad for conferences, to them being able to get jobs in this country. And that is the sort of dissatisfied young person who is coming to politics to find a solution. And if we start disqualifying that dissatisfied young person who is dissenting against governments and has been dissenting against governments for decades, then I think our aim of preventing the criminalization of politics might end up harming those who are seeking to reform it than those in power currently who should be punished for the sort of criminalization that we see around us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing in the perspective of wrong use of. So, I've been requested to ask Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari ji, sir, aap hain? He has to catch a flight, so we would request you to speak. Over to you, sir. हमारा सवाल ये है कि criminalization of politics जो हो रहा है, इसके बारे में what can we do? What are your suggestions? And we have already heard two voices of caution that the remedy could be worse than the disease. But आपका इसके बारे में आपकी क्या राय है? We would be happy to listen. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Sastry, the eminent panelists and the audience. I am very thankful to ADR, an organization that I volunteered once in 2004-2005 and had the pleasure to interact with Professor Sastry much before I joined politics and or studied abroad. When I look at the data and the context of this discussion, several things jump out as a headline. But one thing that scores it more than other is the hijack of the current system that we see at play. in a system where we were fighting criminals, or ADR and civil society was fighting criminals, that was a system where you are fighting muscle of the arm which acted against democracy and the spirit of democracy. But when the system gets hijacked, the fight which is limited to the arm is not useful anymore. It is the battle for the brain, the central nervous system. And when we look at what is happening with SIR, when we look at the way Lok Sabha is functioning, when we look at what happened with electoral, when we look at the amount of money and media power that plays into politics, when we look at the almost randomized models that emerge in terms of judgment from judiciary, and we look at cases which are outstanding. I'll just give you example of one outstanding case. A person who has charges against him and is currently lodged in jail. He has charges against him for inciting violence, anti-national activities, financial irregularities. There is a Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, HIAL, investigation against him. And Supreme Court has commented on the illegal and malified nature on a petition which talks about illegal and malified nature, almost pleaded the government. Who's this person? He's the person who built Istupa, has won several awards such as Raymond Magsaysay Award, Rolex Award for Enterprise, Global Award for Sustainable Architecture, Sonam Wangchuk. And when I contrast him with the Chief Minister of the largest state of India, Mr. Adityanath, and you look at the kind of charges he had before he became the Chief Minister, that is the contrast we are facing. That is the contrast that emerges not because of criminalization of politics. It emerges because of hijack of the institutions. I believe that Association for Democratic Reforms has been able to lead the civil society in fighting evils that emerge from politics, and has been able to inspire others in civil society to build similar institutions. But the battle has changed into a massive war, and the rules of this war are going to be different than the rules that were of the battle. What were the rules of the battle? The rules of the battle was that the judiciary will intervene, and continuous pressure on political parties, putting out the information about criminal politicians in the newspapers, will help and turn the public opinion. What does the research say, and what does the data that ADR presents say? We have a parliament where if you look at ChatGPT, Gemini, you can ask anybody. In the 16th Lok Sabha, the Prime Minister spoke roughly 8 to 9 times a year in the parliament. In the next Lok Sabha, 17th Lok Sabha, he spoke 6 to 7 times in the parliament. And in the 18th Lok Sabha, he is by and large missing from the parliament. And the latest case of escape from the parliament was that he was afraid that women parliamentarians will attack him. Now, what is the constitution of BJP in Lok Sabha today? As per ADR data, it has 94 members of parliament with criminal charges. It has 63 members of parliament with serious criminal charges. These are the people who run the parliament. And the Prime Minister, who's surrounded by the best security standards, is afraid of a few women MP, and he was advised to run away from the parliament by the speaker. I point to the hijack of the system. I don't think that by fighting just one aspect, which is the criminalization of politics, using the model of judiciary, a system that ADR perfected with information, with public engagement, with participation of judiciary, and it did move the needle in a big way. But when systems change, I think an organization like ADR and anybody who's a stakeholder, as somebody who volunteered long time ago, I also see myself as a small stakeholder, have to look at how do we lead this battle against crime and corruption in politics. The nature of crime has also shifted from street crime to white collar crime. What is the complaint that US administration has against Adani's? What is the nature of crime that is visible in day-to-day debates on television which are one-sided? So the white collar crime that automatically comes because of the sophistication of the hijack, because of institutions getting involved, needs to be fought, I don't think by putting the political parties at the front runner of this of this battle or this war. I think the opportunity really is on three things. One is data. ADR has enormous data and an enormous system to collect data on every politician across the country, whether it is the candidate who's fighting an MLA election, a candidate who's fighting an MP election, or possibly at a municipal level also. Or if it is not there, that data layer will come. This data layer enormously empowers any citizen to use the basic AI tools that are available for free to understand who are the politicians who are representing or who are trying to represent them in a constituency. If in a constituency, top 3 politicians who are across party lines, who are trying to represent people in that constituency, all of them have criminal charges or are businessmen who have amassed wealth through corruption, people need to know that not because ADR is telling them through a report. They need to know that because there is a systematic campaign groundswell that now this knowledge is available on your fingertip. You have to go and use this knowledge to build campaigns. So the first thing I would like to state is that the power of data in the age of AI is the most powerful method, in my view, to fight the complete hijack of system in India, which has been hijacked by crime and corruption. The second power is by enabling successful institutions such as ADR to guide, garner support to build ADRs at every MLA constituency level or even lower. There needs to be vibrant institutions at the grassroots, not led by politicians, not supported by political parties, but empowered by the data that gets collected if the brain is getting captured, we have to fight at the brain level. ADR is that brain in my view, and institutions of that eminence. So the second part is empowering those arms and legs. I'll hold for a second. There was background noise, sorry about that. That's why I muted myself. So I'm concluding second and third point. The second point is this, that if there is a massive data and AI capability at the very top, and there are institutions at the local level which are arms and legs, those institutions enable people at the local level to understand the nature of politics, the ideas that are being presented by politicians at their level. That empowerment will ensure that there is systematic momentum, just like the politics has created a systematic momentum for crime and corruption to enter political system. Similarly, I believe that with data, with this information at fingertip, there could be a systematic momentum in many constituencies. I'm not saying all constituencies, where people will fight this. The third and final thing is that there's some news about feelers from the government about women reservation bill. I want to highlight, and Priyanka is here, just how some of these structural things can fundamentally change. Today, data can easily say that there are more criminals in politics than women in politics. And this is our accomplishment as 75 years. And if you just look at what can be possible, of the roughly probably 6,000 MPs and MLAs that are there in the country, maybe 600 or 700 are women. Post-women reservation bill, if 1/3 of these MPs and MLAs are women, you're talking about 2,000 women MPs and MLAs. If you look at the gender in crime and corruption, businesses have been passed from man to man. Criminal nexus has been passed from man to man. In religion, it is generally captured from man to man. So the 2,000 women MPs and MLAs that we expect to see in the country in future are unlikely to come from these corrupted lines of politics. They are likely to come from the kind of work Priyanka has done, others are doing in civil society, based on knowledge, based on capability, based on participation, and raising women issues. I think that is my third point, that some of these structural things, if they are empowered, without head-on challenging the corrupt and criminal system that has hijacked politics in India, we will be able to just enable a new set of politicians just because there's a structural change. And the way these set of politicians hopefully will come into politics will not have the same antecedents. So with that, I would like to pause, summarizing that it is the use of data and AI use of grassroots organizations modeled on the frame of ADR, but building communication campaigns at the grassroots, and structural changes that will have alternative or significant impact on this battle, such as the Women Reservation Bill, and more empowerment of grassroots organizations that enable the backwards, Dalits, minorities. I think that is a stronger way to fight crime and corruption in politics than putting political parties in charge of what they have used to hijack the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghanshyam ji. Thanks on two counts. One is that you have given us some concrete suggestions which we will consider and see how we can take it forward. And also thanks to the three people who have spoken so far from the political parties. We were afraid that they would, talk about their party and criticize other political parties, but they've been giving us constructive solutions. So thanks a lot. And I believe you have a flight to catch. How long are you available with us? For another few minutes? Or?
Yeah, I am available for another few minutes. I'll try to see if I can join from the car as I move to the airport.
Okay. In that case, I will move to the next
yeah.
speaker, because if you're available even from the car, we would like to have you on there.
Yeah, I'll message Nandini if I'm able to join.
Thank you. So over to Priyanka ji. We are looking forward to listening to you, madam. Yeah.
Thank you for having me
you
here,
are
sir.
an example of what he was trying to do.
Thank you, Ghanshyam. Thank you very much. I've known Ghanshyam, and he's a brilliant speaker. We need more people like him, definitely. He represents the new age of politicians. And I mean, I disagree with Anish a bit when he said that, there are statistics to say that people who will come from an education, formal education, probably they can also karwa sakte hain wo dange, definitely karwa sakte hain. But the probability, the data will support otherwise, I would think. Thank you, ADR, for having me on this platform, on this esteemed platform. I became a fan of ADR, no less, when they were able to get the unconstitutional electoral bonds struck down. I have been following everything ADR does since. I will admit that prior to that, possibly, I was only aware about their work, which is also a massive work where we today get to see the criminal antecedents of any candidate that a political party puts up. I have been involved in the election process, and I have seen how much of it's tough for the candidates also that they have to get their information printed more than thrice sometimes in the newspapers, and that's all thanks to the ADR. So I think that's really commendable work, the continuous work that ADR does. I agree with Ghanshyam ji that today the nuances of criminality in politics is seeing it's a very nuanced kind of crime now. There is one thing to have Samrat Chaudhry's and Brijbhushan Saran Singhs in politics, and it's quite another to give illegal extension to Sanjay Kumar Mishra of the ED, for example, because that extension was only given so that they follow the command of the political masters. Then again, it has become nuanced that we saw electoral bonds, in the form of electoral bonds, the illegality that was committed. Other political parties don't have that kind of money, and the transparency was completely gone. And it transpired subsequently that, sorry sir, I'm going to be very blunt, that CBI and ED were used as a Vasuli Vibhag for the BJP. That happened. It is for us to see. I'm not making these things up. I also think, taking away from everything that the speakers before me have spoken, that one thing that is definitely needed in today's time is accountability of the investigation officer. If we want to improve the conviction rate, if we want that जिस तरह के cases अरविंद केजरीवाल आम आदमी पार्टी पर हुए वो आगे ना हो, through this bill that they're supposed to now implement, that if you're arrested for 30 days, you will have to let go of your chair. वो तो छोड़ देंगे, आम आदमी पार्टी छोड़ देगी. We don't have an issue with that. The issue is what happens when we are discharged, who's accountable. Very unfortunately yesterday, I mean, I'll call it unfortunate, it was disturbing to me that the departmental inquiry on the CBI officer was stayed in the High Court. I think it was a precedent that a departmental inquiry would have been initiated against a police officer, against an investigation officer who conducted this investigation completely based on hearsay evidence in charges as heinous as PMLA. So I think, sir, one of my humble requests to you is that when you present the suggestions from ADR for the JPC that I've gone through, one suggestion may also please be that the investigation officer has to be made accountable if the charges are found to be false. That will definitely, in my view, improve conviction rate in the country. That will definitely, in my view, make an ask of them to ईमानदारी से काम करने के लिए and not necessarily under the dabav of the political party, whichever political party is in power. It's today's BJP, tomorrow it may be something else. So this kind of law where the investigation officer will be penalized for a investigation, in my view, will really help to bring in some integrity, some transparency into the system. Because हमने भुगता है that the evidences were presented on TV. They were leaked by the CBI and media. The evidences were created and presented on TV. None existed. And we were fighting for 3 years only to defend that no such evidence exists, that the BJP spokesperson were claiming on TV. So it was a very hard battle for us. And we have come into politics because we believe that we can change the system. We come from educated backgrounds. We want more educated and more professional people and more women to join politics, because I think that will bring a change. The traditional parties, I think, they have kind of dissuaded the younger generation to even speak about politics. Today everyone says that politics ki baat nahi karni. The younger generation says that, and that is painful to me, because everything, the air we breathe is connected to politics, let alone anything else. So I think it is very important for the younger generation's participation, like Sir said. I think it is very important for more women to come into politics. I think more professionals, more educated people should definitely come into politics. And the example that Ghanshyam quoted before me, that there is a stark contrast between the kind of charges that Yogi Adityanath had on him and for the kind of charges that Sonam Wangchuk is in jail. Similarly, you see no investigation at all if, for example, a Brij Bhushan Saran Singh has admitted on TV that I committed a murder. There is just no investigation. What do you do? So unless we make the investigation officer accountable, in my view, that will bring about a lot of change. That I really believe so. Other than that, I have a lot of hope, because we are a country of 140 billion people. I have a lot of hope that I feel that there are people who are silent, who do not like what is happening currently in the country with respect to, say, the institutional sabotage that we see repeatedly, whether it is the income tax department, like he said, the Indian ICE, I agree with that. So, to my mind, with the limited experience, because the people on this panel are far more experienced than I am, with the limited experience that I have, I keep coming back to one solution for now, and which is to make the investigation agencies more accountable for their actions, make the politicians more accountable for their actions. I'm digressing, but it is very painful to me to see as a politician that people in Indore died because of drinking contaminated water, and that politician just continues. Nothing happens to him. The people who died, they will get at best, they will get 2 lakh rupees or under. That's the value of human life in our country. This has to change. We have to find solutions towards this. And since so many young people are sitting here, it is my request to all of you that please don't shy away from talking about politics. Please don't shy away from participating in politics. Because you have also gone silent to an extent, the water and the air is getting contaminated. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have some time for Q&A, but I'll use my prerogative as the moderator to make a few remarks, sir. One is, we have heard voices of caution, both from Mr. Rawat and him from the NCP. We've heard some constructive suggestions from Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari and from her about the investigative agencies, so we are there. Now, a couple of things I would like to mention which people may not know. I think the people on the panel know this. One is that he referred to an FIR against him. Now, the Supreme Court is very clear. Supreme Court is not a bacha. When they gave this order, as per the Supreme Court directive, that FIR need not be declared in the affidavit. If people are still doing it, that's their choice. What has to be declared is a criminal charges being framed. It's a 5-step procedure before criminal charges are framed, which has to be declared in the affidavit, which means there is an FIR, there is a police investigation, charges are framed, there is a preliminary hearing, and after the preliminary hearing, when the judicial mind is applied, charges are formally framed. At that 5th stage, when the charges are framed, they have to declare in their affidavit, the candidate, that I have got this case. So any frivolous FIR or here and there is not the case. Now, the question is that when it has gone up from 22-24% in 2004 to 46% who have got charges framed against them, no doubt the politicians will say all of them are cooked up and all of them are false, they're all politically motivated. Then the whole system is not working. One party is accusing the other. I do not believe the case because our data show very clearly that even when a party is in power, cases are being framed against their own people. So there is something happening out there. Of course, we are aware of the limitations of the police and the judiciary and all that. So let me leave it at that. So let us put this fact on the table that these are not any false accusation which is going to be taken up for the public. The other point I want to make is that first maybe I will ask a question if you don't mind. One is that a negative approach which says how do we remove criminals from politics, and we have heard all the views. The other one, two of the speakers hinted on it is, well, let's not worry about that. How do you bring in more and more good people into politics? Now the fact is that the political system, we heard from 4 of the political parties, they're all saying that we are victims of various forces. The other party is hijacked this and that, we are being falsely accused, so the political parties feel victimized. On the other hand, sir, if we may presume to speak on behalf of the people of the people of the country are outraged. They do not go by our argument that 46% of people are all false cases. And we have to be so cautious. She just said India has 1.4 billion people. Agar 500 लोगों को हटा देंगे, even if they are falsely accused, 500 लोग और नहीं मिलेंगे हमारे देश में, इतने होनहार लोग नहीं है क्या? यहीं पे बैठे हुए हैं. India has millions of outstanding people. If a few people are falsely accused, we say, God bless you, I'm sorry you have been falsely accused, let's get in some good guys. And so there is no problem about talent in this country. Now we have a situation where political parties have retreated and are defending their rights, and the people are saying, "आप लोग ठीक से नहीं कर रहे हो, वोट मिलते हैं वो बात अलग है." This is not healthy. We talked about it beyond criminalization. What we need is a healthy dialogue and discussion between parties and people, where we trust each other. People trust the political parties and the politician trusts the people. Right now we have retreated into our different compartments and we are defending ourselves. Is this a good sign, and how do we rebuild trust between the political parties and the people. Let the system be hijacked, but if the people trust the political parties and the political parties trust the people, we already got a solution. Would you like to react to that, or is it too provocative a question? Yeah, Ghanshyam ji, aap boliye.
Because I have to leave, I would like to answer first, if which is allowed. I think what I have seen in the last 10, 11 years in politics is, actually 15 years in politics, is that power today purifies and glorifies crime and corruption. All you need to do is be the Yogi Adityanath before 2017 and be the one that is after. I believe that, with all due respect, Professor Sastry, I think that imagining that a trusted climate among all political parties will enable crime and corruption to stop at the grassroots is not a goalpost I would like to work for. I would like to work for a goalpost where there is so much. Today, these politicians, and if you look at the run rate or selection rate of politicians who have criminal charges and their repeat selection rate, right, or election rate rather, right, from the time they get ticket to their win, there's enough data from Milan Vaishnav and other that talk about the reward of crime in politics. My hope actually lies in looking at what politicians are afraid of. It is not these charges. They're afraid of a bad name. If the data that is there at the central level, and if there are vibrant organizations at the grassroots level who are continuously building campaigns that are exciting people about the kind of candidate they should have versus the kind of candidate that they contest, I think that continuous public campaign at a grassroots level, constituency to constituency, will help us win the battle where people are in charge. And in that line, my final sentence is, we don't need to win the entire battle all at once, right? If we are talking about 543 constituencies or maybe 4,000 to 5,000 MLA constituencies, we have to win the first 500, first 50, where successive elections have seen criminals from one party or another get elected. What can we do? What do we learn from that asymmetric battle with different strategies in different constituencies that change the momentum of politics? I think that the battle lies there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other responses? No, my question, let me reframe, is that should we rebuild trust between the political parties and the people of this country? Is it required? And will that help to solve this problem?
So I think the first answer to that question will be that the rebuilding of trust happens every 5 years through an election, right? The very fact that you're being elected is an affirmation of trust. I mean, it might be a misplaced trust, it might not be a trust we necessarily agree with, but we cannot ignore that we do still have a vibrant democracy.
So, just to be provocative, you are saying that just because somebody wins, that means people trust them.
No, I'm saying that there are also non-criminals contesting.
There is it's not only once in 5 years. Political parties, can they engage with the people continuously and say कि भाई हम दोनों एक ही काम कर रहे हैं, आप भी देश का विकास चाहते हैं, हम भी देश का विकास, हम मिलके काम करें. That kind of trust is not there. It is okay, he is a hero, उसको वोट दे देंगे.
But
that's not trust. That is hero worship. Trust is a separate issue. So should we build trust or not is my question. Of course, you don't have to answer that question. You please go ahead.
No, I think we should. But the only institution we have to measure that trust is an election. We've converted elections into a platform for hero worship. And the perception of what an election stands for needs to certainly change. But again, I think that unfortunately in a lot of these conversations, we're looking for magic wands, right? And the problem here is, sir, you said the conviction rate for the NIA was about 90%, and that's a good thing, but these conviction rates are 2%. In fact, I would have the opposite opinion. To say that a conviction rate should be determined by whether or not there is merit to a case. The time in which you decide a case is far more important than the conviction rate, because we have to go back to those first principles. In the rule of law, letting 99 guilty people get away is still better than sending one innocent person to jail. So while I agree with the conception that yes, if there are enough sort of non-criminal charge filed individuals who can contest elections, they should step in and the others should step out. I think we are contravening some principles of justice there and also keeping incredibly talented people out. I think those sort of first principles that we refuse to address, our lower judiciary has to frame these charges, because the pressure on the lower judiciary has always been far higher than on our high courts and our Supreme Courts. The process for selection of our judges in our lower judiciary is a process that has not been reformed in decades. The sort of incentives that we give to our district magistrates, to our city civil court judges, to our sort of magistrates at the lower court level simply does not allow them to function in as independent a manner as your high court judges or your Supreme Court judges. So in some ways, I think those structural challenges to me are more important to address. And when the question of trust arises, I think one of the beautiful reasons we have a democracy is because it's the best form of government, it's the worst form of government except all the others that have come before it. And the only way to assert that trust is through an election. And if we start reasserting the fact that trust in a politician is important when that person contests an election, I think that is changing, right? I think we're seeing politicians being punished. That's the only way to rebuild and continue to reassert that trust.
Thank you. And I will pass it over to Priyanka ji. I will give you the last word, sir, but before that, we want a few audience questions. So if you keep your remarks brief, we will open it up to...
Ji, sir.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that dialogue is always welcome. I definitely think there should be a exchange of dialogues, whether it doesn't matter how extreme the view is. It is very important, and that is what has gone missing since the past few decades, the past few years, I think, the last decade especially, that the dialogue is missing. So I think public awareness programs where a dialogue is possible, where the politicians and public can interact after taking the vote is very important. And we tried something similar, sir, because you want me to be brief, I'll just touch upon it. For example, when we were changing the schooling structure in Delhi, we ensured that the parents of the students were on the board of, they were called SMCs, and that they would come on board, they would decide how the school, which teachers will teach, what subjects will be brought, how much money has to be spent on the infrastructure of the school or the courses, the demand of new courses. So we tried such a system in a smaller way, but yes, at a larger level, it is definitely required, sir. Dialogue is always important.
Thank you, and thank you also for keeping yourself brief. We are very eager to hear from, do we have a mic which can go around? Yeah. So my only request is keep your question brief, because in India we have a tendency to launch into a long speech. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if there are online questions, how do we... So first we'll start with the people who've taken the trouble to come. Yeah.
थैंक यू एडीआर, थैंक यू पैनलिस्ट। जैसा कि अभी प्रियंका मैम ने बताया था कि ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह के बारे में, और सभी जानते हैं। या माय सेल्फ प्रवीण सिंह बिरला, आई एम असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर एमबीएस कॉलेज ऑफ एजुकेशन कोसली रेवाड़ी। तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये, अभी घनश्याम सर भी जा चुके हैं, समाजवादी पार्टी को बिलोंग करते हैं।
सवाल पूछे या सजेशन दीजिए
सर, वो उसी से कनेक्ट है सवाल। तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये था, जैसे कि अभी बीजेपी ने ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह को पार्टी का बाहर का रास्ता नहीं दिखाया, पार्टी का बाहर का रास्ता न दिखाते हुए उनके लड़के को एमपी बनाया। यही काम मैंने अभी सुनने में आ रहा है कि समाजवादी पार्टी भी अंदरूनी काम कर रहे हैं ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह। क्या समाजवादी पार्टी उनको इस बार चुनाव में टिकट देने की संभावना बन रही है? और बन रही है तो क्यों बन रही है? जब हम बात कर रहे हैं कि बाहुबलियों को बाहर का रास्ता दिखाना चाहिए, जैसे सर अभी आपने कहा था कि 500 लोग यहाँ पे कमी ही नहीं है, तो उस पर क्या काम करेंगी पार्टियां? आम आदमी पार्टी तो एकदम स्वच्छता पर काम कर रही है, सभी लोगों को पता है, लेकिन बाकी पार्टियां तो नहीं कर पा रही हैं। इस पर क्या विचार रहेगा आपका? ये क्वेश्चन मैं घनश्याम सर से पूछ सकता था, क्योंकि अब तो शायद जा चुके हैं, तो कोई जवाब मुझे दे सकता है इसका रिगार्डिंग ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह।
तो आप ये कह रहे हैं कि अच्छे लोगों को लाने के बहाने में उनके बेटे बेटियां दामाद वगैरह ऐसे लोगों को टिकट दिया?
जी सर।
Well, I can देखिए, there's some hope. आप देखिए कम से
एक
कम
क्वेश्चन इसमें करना, जैसे मुझे लगता है कि पार्टी उनको बाहर का रास्ता इसलिए नहीं दिखा रही है क्योंकि उनके जो प्रभावशाली क्षेत्र हैं, जैसे गोंडा है, बहराइच, अयोध्या, श्रावस्ती, बलरामपुर, या प्रभाव है, तो सोचना चाहते हैं कि हमारे वोट कटेगा या कैंडिडेट हमको नहीं मिलेंगे, ऐसा कुछ।
मैं आपके साथ पूरी तरह सहमत हूँ। तो अब मुझे जवाब, मतलब आपकी जो दुविधा है वो मेरी भी दुविधा है।
दुविधा तो सभी की है मैम।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। तो आई एम विद यू ऑन दिस, बट एट द सेम टाइम आई थिंक कि आपने देखा होगा कि हाल ही में किस तरह से पब्लिक प्रेशर जब बना तो उनको कम से कम टिकट नहीं मिली। द पब्लिक डिड इट, जब विमेन रेसलर्स के साथ जो भी अभद्रता हुई, उन्होंने आवाज, 7 दिन लग गए उनको FIR कराने में. I mean, imagine that is the state. वो FIR ही नहीं करा पा रही थी, 7 दिन लग गए. But the public responded. The public anger was so massive that the BJP had to उनकी टिकट काटनी पड़ी उनको. उनके बेटे को दी, मैं आपसे सहमत हूँ, पर स्टेप 1 तो पब्लिक ने अचीव किया, स्टेप 2 भी पब्लिक ही अचीव करेगी. आप जब उनको ऑप्शन देंगे, हम दिल्ली में बिल्कुल नए लोग थे, हमें कौन जानता था, आम आदमी पार्टी नहीं थी, कोई नेता नहीं है हम, बट
Sir, let us not get into a debate. There are other people also who want to ask questions.
that is why I think जो सर ने पहले कहा कि पब्लिक अवेयरनेस, पब्लिक पार्टिसिपेशन, डायलॉग, जब बात होगी तब लोगों तक पता चलेगा, क्योंकि जनरली लोग उठा के पढ़ते नहीं है क्या क्या केस थे. जब मुद्दा बना महिलाओं का, तब पहली सजा मिली उनको, दूसरी भी पब्लिक ही देगी.
Other questions, please.
Hello everyone, greetings to the panel. Sir, I have this question with you. Sir, I am Abhinav Kumar, I am from Delhi University. Sir, my question is that even though people are much more aware than past decades regarding the background of politicians and all, regarding their financial status, their criminal backgrounds, but with these records we are saying that the percentage, their participation and their percentage of winning elections have been increasing since the past years. So what is the reason behind this?
So let me answer that, although these people may be in their own way better qualified. There are 2 reasons for it.
So may I complete my full question?
Yeah.
So sir, is there any social or psychological issue with people?
I don't want to get into that, but let me try to answer your question. And we can also have a chat, because this is a very $1,000,000 question. Why are people with known criminal records winning more and more? That is your question, right? And what could be the reasons? So one reason is, one of the speakers, I think he mentioned, or maybe Ghanshyamji mentioned, that ADR kind of organizations are very small. Our annual budget is 2.5 crores. And one candidate in one urban constituency spends several times that money in one constituency. And they have social media which reaches the whole country and all the voters. We are not able to reach. Short and long of it is that it's not true that all the voters are fully aware of all the candidate background. True or false is a separate issue. That is one reason. The second reason is that the political parties, as many of you have mentioned, they refuse to be transparent. They continue to give tickets to such people for whatever reasons, that we have to go and ask the political parties why they are doing it. And the third thing is a little bit more complex, for which we don't have an answer, that people are not single point voters. There are 10 other considerations they have in mind before they vote, and criminalization is one of the issues. For us it means that it should be the deciding issue, but for many people it is not. So if you want to join our campaign, let us start informing the people, and I'll give you some good news. Some research was done. It requires a lot of money. That is a problem. So you have to send, 1 lakh WhatsApp messages 1 week before the election to people of that constituency. Where do you get their numbers? And say that, do you know that these are the 3-4 candidates and this is the criminal record? And then a control group, and see whether it makes a difference. So the preliminary research shows that actually it makes a huge difference. So we are not able to reach the voters. I refuse to believe that people in this country are so cynical that in spite of the fact that people have criminal cases, they will continue to vote for them. अभी हमारा देश इतना खराब नहीं हुआ है, लोगों को अभी तक पूरी जानकारी नहीं मिल रही है. So the research that we have got, as a young man, I am so, since you are a young man, I am so happy that you are concerned about this fundamental question. Thank you.
नमस्कार सर. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि आपने पहले मेंशन किया था कि कैसे लोकल कोर्ट्स, डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोर्ट्स वो उतनी एफिशिएंट नहीं है, जबकि एविडेंस के ग्राउंड पर या कोई और पर लोग जानते हैं कि हाँ दिक्कत है कहीं, वो लोग चार्ज है उस बेसिस पे, पॉलिटिशियंस, लीडर्स. तो सर मतलब जो जुडिशरी का जो मैकेनिज्म है उसमें कुछ चेंजेस लाने की ज़रूरत है. अगर कोई भी प्रोटेस्ट करेगा नॉन ऑफिशियली तो उस पर ये डर आता है कि कोर्ट का कंटेम्प्ट लग जाएगा. तो उस पर उतना लोग आते भी नहीं है, खुल के बोल भी नहीं पाते. तो उसके ऊपर लेके आपका कुछ सजेशंस सर रिगार्डिंग मतलब जुडिशरी के मैकेनिज्म्स को लेके कि उसमें कुछ एवोल्यूशन हुआ है, उसमें कुछ चेंजेस की ज़रूरत है.
I think you have misunderstood me. There is no blemish on the judiciary. The thing is, investigation agency, prosecuting agency, and then the adjudicating forum. These all three need more informed, better trained manpower so that investigations are good, impartial, objective, and deliver. Prosecution is effective, and then adjudicating agency delivers fairly. So these three have to be taken care of. That was my point.
See, they talk about women's participation, but no questions. No questions.
Perhaps.
Yes.
Oh, did you say? Yeah. My name is Charu Khanna. I'm an independent consultant. And as someone who's unaffiliated, I've not come here from college or from, nobody has sent me here. I'm here on my own. I wanted to find out how can ordinary citizens help? By volunteering, in kind, by donating their time, by donating their, whatever they might be skilled at, whether it's communication, whether it's cartoon, whether it's storytelling, whether it's being on social media and spreading the message. If you could, enumerate some of those so that everyone who's here could get some ideas about how, as an individual, I could contribute. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. We will have a longer discussion over tea, but this is right up ADR's alley. So we want people like you to help. And today, basically spreading the good word as far as possible, and without being non-partisan by saying ki ye chor hai, wo chor hai, nothing of the sort, but making the people of India and particularly the youth to think based on facts. So as much dissemination as possible. It's not a one organization job. We need to do this. I was just telling him very, as a fun thing that in our neighboring country of Nepal, the young people change the elections by using social media. And we have a 35-year-old prime minister. So the old parties are doing it in their own way or not using it. But we need to use this to reach the young people. And I'm glad that you want to volunteer. Let's have a chat. You want to add something?
Yeah. I'll just like to add here that as an individual, if you are aware, there is an application by Election Commission, it is called CVISIL, Citizen Vigilance. You can make effective use of that to contribute meaningfully. Thank you.
Good morning all of you. My name is Harshit Sharma. I am a law student from University of Delhi. So my question is for Mr. Gawande and Mrs. Kakkar. So we often hear political parties criticizing criminalization of politics, and they all in one tone they say that it must be checked. But what we forget is who are putting forward these criminal candidates? It is these political parties only. So why is there a difference in speech and action? And there are two questions. First of all, what is the role of party at intra-party level? What is the role of the political parties in preventing criminalization of politics? And secondly, what have your parties done to prevent criminalization of politics? Thank you.
Again, I don't want to speak only from my party position right now, because I think I've clarified again that I, one, fundamentally disagree with this idea that criminalization of politics as it is currently defined is a bad thing, right? In that, in the face of increasingly political charges being filed against candidates, how can I call Anil Deshmukh ji, a former Home Minister, criminal in politics? How can I call Nawab Malik ji, a criminal in politics? How can I call Arvind Kejriwal ji, a criminal in politics? How can I call Manish Sisodia ji, a criminal in politics? Right? So you have to be very careful about what kinds of criminalization are being targeted currently under the political sort of persecution of opposition leaders and how the opposition has to respond to them. So in the opposition, I cannot not give a ticket to leaders who have time and again proved their mettle on the electoral field because they've had charges filed against them by a government that they stood up against because they were defending the political party they belonged to, right? So that's one very important factor to consider. I think the second factor, which I think I agree with you, right, which we have to address structurally, is why are people also voting for people with criminal records in politics? In a system today, where as an opposition politician or as an individual MLA or an MP, you are given no rights and no funds for your constituency, it is often voters who realize that somebody who comes with wealth, somebody who comes with privilege, who can do something for their constituency is someone they should elect. That's the mentality that also needs to change. Under this government, MP lads funds have not been increased. Individual MPs from the opposition have had funding restricted to their constituencies, and therefore no development work has taken place in those constituencies. MPs who don't come from wealthy backgrounds have had a challenge, right? Contesting elections. I think I give the Aam Aadmi Party credit. In Delhi, they proved. And to your question also, please also volunteer with political parties. We also, like, good candidates need people who will support them, who don't sort of, candidates who don't have vast amounts of money need good people to come together to run their campaigns and then to take them forward, right? So to prevent that kind of criminalization, I think public sort of coalescing, public gathering around of good candidates is incredibly important. Supporting those candidates with time, with your effort, with your skills, and then also pushing for reforms that ensure that those who are elected are not discriminated against because they themselves don't come from privilege. I think it's disheartening even today to see the way in which a government elected in Delhi was prevented from functioning because of funds that were constrained by the central government, right? So what is the use then of getting good people into politics when the structures then prevent you from doing good as well? So there is a very big structural question that all political parties are aware of. My candidate will not get re-elected if he doesn't come with money and muscle power because he'll get lost, right? So how do we build people's movements that support candidates like these? And we've seen those examples increase. And how do we sustain these people in politics? Very often, good, clean candidates win once. They fail in their re-election. Somebody pointed out Milan Vaishnav's report also, I think right now, about sort of election being higher amongst criminals in politics, and that's precisely for this reason. अगर आप सभ्य हो, अगर आप ईमानदार हो, तो आपको re-election में दिक्कत आती है. Now, how do we solve this structurally is through these things, through people's movements. And when that starts happening, you will see a reduction in money power, a reduction in muscle power, and consequently a reduction in criminalization of politics.
Oh, well, I can say that I'm a proud member of a party where it is very important that we have no criminal records, that the character is solid. We make it a criteria before we choose the candidates. I'm very proud of it. Having said that, I'm also aware that even if the percentage is very little, there may be people in the party with these criminal cases, but one example is how Anish tried to explain that बहुत ज़्यादा झूठे आरोप लगा दिए जाते हैं आजकल. Anybody can misuse the law. All of that happens, you know, especially when the power to even register an FIR is not in your hands. It's really at the will of the agencies these days. So that is one aspect. But having said that, I also slightly disagree with Anish, because I do believe that जनता को पता ही नहीं चलता कि कितने केसेस हैं उनके ऊपर, कि किस तरह के हीनस क्राइम्स हैं किसी के ऊपर, कौन से चार्जेस हैं. The people are, despite the best effort, they are busy in their life. Despite the best effort, they're not aware. So I think movements where we can interact, जो हमारी पहले बात हुई कि जहाँ interaction बढ़े, लोगों के साथ dialogue बढ़े, ये जानकारी उन तक पहुँचे. I don't think people want to vote for somebody जिसने किसी का घर जला दिया हो. मतलब why will anyone want to vote for a person जो लोगों के घर जला दे? Why will anyone want to vote for a person जिसने 50 murder कर दिए हो? And there are people like that in our politics currently. There are. And they're the very big names that I'm saying. Go check who has a case of arson against them and then it was dropped. You will know the answer. So nobody wants, but लोगों को पता ही नहीं है, हमें ही नहीं पता, आपको ही नहीं यहाँ बैठे पता, तो आम जनता को तो कैसे पता होगा? So we possibly need to work on that somehow. That is one area. I hope that answers your question. And good people do have to come. This should not stop good people from entering into politics. Ki there are bad people. Of course, there are bad people everywhere.
Thank you so much. We are running out of time. So, as promised, I am going to request Mr. Rawat, our senior most person who has been Chief Election Commissioner of India, to have the last word. Over to you, sir. You have heard the whole thing.
Yeah,
so we would like to get your views as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Sastry. It has been a very vibrant discussion. A lot of new things have come on the table. Especially Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari gave a very constructive look at the whole issue, that bringing in women through women reservation, bringing in educated people, this may effectively change the scenario of increasing number of candidates with criminal past. And very good participants' questions have also highlighted that whatever is troubling their minds is very important for our democracy and democratic reforms. I would like to just add here that with all these issues on the table, discussion is important, finding a way out is important, but you know, our system of elections, first past the post system, it hides many things than it reveals. Like any candidate with criminal past is winning doesn't mean that all those people who knew about him have voted for him. No. A candidate with just 21% vote may win. 79% have not voted for him. So this system of first past the post system is to blame. We should not jump on the conclusion that all of them have knowingly voted for a criminal. No. So there are areas where a lot of reform is needed. ADR has been doing yeoman service to get that done. They are relentlessly working on that. And people are also aware. We must have full faith in our electorate. And I can just give you two examples here. One is from local government elections in Jabalpur of 1999. I was observer there, and I found people's group giving masses to the political parties. Two major parties were fighting election there, that if you put up a good candidate, we'll vote for that person. If both of you do not put up a good candidate, we will feel a third gender and make that person win. And that created history. Two mayors were from third gender in towns called Katni and Sihora, and 3 wards in Jabalpur had candidates who won from third gender. So people are aware, they are maturing, and they know what is what. It is not correct to say that they are not aware about the candidates' antecedents. They know much more than all of us put together, because word of mouth travels very fast. That is one. Second is about abuse and about our policing. I found in a southern state that at a building site, one illiterate labor was shouting at Election Commission surveillance team when they were seizing the freebies being distributed. I didn't understand that language, so I asked my driver to explain what is he saying. He said that he is saying, why are you catching this? Do you think that I vote for these people who are distributing? Absolutely no. You are mistaken. Once in 5 years, I get this, I can enjoy with my family, party somewhere, and avail of this from anyone who is distributing. I will always vote for someone who is good for society, who is good for us. I think that speaks volumes for our democratic strength. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would like to close with a big thanks to the panelists. We got a variety of views, And even more thanks to the audience and particularly people sitting at the back who have been listening with great attention. I think it is good for us. He has already answered your question, madam, that what do we do as individuals? He told us what happened in Jabalpur. So the message really is that more and more people have to get involved. So please be in touch with us. And once again, thanks to all of you for coming. And if Ghanshyamji is there, thanks to him as well. Thank you.